The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are coming to you live from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. This is the home for Autism Live. It is also the home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. We're thrilled to be here with you on this Thursday morning in October. I don't know about the rest of you, this is my favorite time of the year. I'm so excited, even though we don't get a lot of fall colors, quite honestly, here in Los Angeles. We get a little, but it has finally cooled off here. And I know that many of you around the United States and around the world are having fall colors. I just love this time of year. And I love that it's a time when somebody, last night on TV, they said it's baking weather. And I thought, oh, isn't that the truth? I just love this time of year. So thrilled to be here with you on this Thursday morning. And boy, do we have a jam-packed show for you. And we keep shoehorning more things into it. So I'm really, really excited about this show. Want to remind you that we're going to be with you live for the next 2 hours. And the entire show, end to end, is meant to be interactive. We want to hear from you. We want to know your thoughts, your feelings, your concerns, because we're trying to look at autism from a 360-degree perspective. So we welcome the entire autism community. And for me, what that community consists of is people, of course, who are on the autism spectrum, whether they be a 3-year-old or a 103-year-old, right? But it also consists of parents, teachers, practitioners, relatives, people, anybody who cares about people who are on the autism spectrum and wants to help not only the person who's on the spectrum, but everyone around them to get to more progress and more happiness. You know, if you're part of that, then I call you part of the autism community. So come here, be here. We're open to discussion and talking with all of you about how can we get further along on this spectrum of things that, you know, because no two people on the spectrum are the same. No two families need the same thing, but there is progress that can be had. So that's what we talk about here on the show. In fact, Samantha's going to show you some of the different ways that you can participate with us here on the show and some of the different ways that you can watch or get your question heard. While she does that, I want to remind you that our homepage is autism-live.com. When you go there, there's a lot of different things to do, but I want to draw your attention to the computer screen. If you click on the little triangle that's on the computer screen, it will automatically start playing either the live show, if we happen to be live, or the most recently recorded live show. Now, if you want to go back further into our archives, there is a little memo icon up in the upper right-hand corner, left-hand corner of the computer screen, and that gets you the 100 most recent episodes that we've recorded. If you want to go deeper, you can go onto iTunes or YouTube. It's a free download. We're free everywhere because we want to get this information into the hands of the people that want it at the time that they need it, right? But back to the homepage, once you're done, you know, figuring out what you want to do about watching a show, to the side of all that is something called the live feature. It's a series of white boxes. If you will put your cursor in the box that says your question, all you have to do is type and hit enter, and your question will show up here on my screen. And in that way, you and I can have a conversation, but better than that, you can have a conversation with our guests and our experts. And that's a wonderful thing. It's totally free. You don't have to log in. You don't have to have a username or a password or identify who you are or give anybody your credit card information. Nobody wants to know your social security number. You just put your cursor there, type, hit enter. It does take a couple of minutes to get here to me because I don't know, it has to go to a satellite. It has to bounce off the moon. Whatever it has to do, But so it takes a couple of minutes. So when we're in a segment with somebody, make sure you send your question early in the segment if you want it asked during the segment. Okay? Otherwise, it's during the break and I tell them, and then I talk about it when I come back. Oh, it's not as much fun. But in any case, I always do like to remind you too at the start of the show that while we have many, many experts on the show, and boy, we shoehorned it all in today. I'm not one of the experts, okay? So just to be clear on that, I am an autism parent. I am a former teacher, and I'm a proud autism parent. My son is 13 years old, diagnosed at 2.5, and here's the long and the short of it. I got really good advice and I got really good help and support. And I am in such a sweet, wonderful spot right now that I'm like looking over my shoulder like, what's coming? Because things have gone so well for us. And I don't for a day forget to be grateful for what I've gotten. And I want to share hope that there is hope for everybody, and I want for you to get to the resources that are right for you, because this isn't one size fits all. Yes, I'm happy to tell you what we did. I'm happy to tell you how it went and how hard it was. I never want to candy coat it for you, but I know that what my son needed and needs is not necessarily what you or your child or your student needs. So please know that. And that I'm not an expert. I'm here because I care passionately, and I have something to give back, a lot of something to give back, and a responsibility to give back, but not an expert. Okay, passionate, and I want to hold your hand. I always say, come on, we'll hold hands. We're going to get through this together, because we can get through this together. And I always like to remind us, si se puede, right? We can do this, because I know we can. If I could do it, I know for sure you can do it. But not an expert, just passionate. All right. We like to start every morning with something we fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym. We try to figure out what are the experts talking about and why are they talking about it and why should we care and what are we supposed to do with this information, right? It can be overwhelming, though, when you first start on this journey and people use these terms, and a lot of times you fall into alphabet land, like today. It's this way. Gotta get my Carol Merrill right. And you go, what does that mean? And then you ask them to explain what the alphabet is. They tell you, and you're no closer to knowing what does that mean for you. So I love what Dr. Jonathan Tarbox said to us, how to eat an elephant one bite at a time. That's what we're doing with the jargon. Okay, so our jargon term for today is, as you can see, LRE. And that stands for least restrictive environment. What does this have to do with our 3-year-olds and our 13-year-olds and our 23-year-olds? Okay, let's dig in, because this is important stuff. So LRE, in the U.S., Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, which stands for IDEA, the least restrictive environment, LRE, means that a student who has a disability should have the opportunity to be educated with their non-disabled peers to the greatest extent appropriate. Okay, so that's our actual definition. Let's move on to our working definition. Often, a child is entitled to an inclusive environment with supports. That's often what an LRE means. So let's break this down a little bit. Remember, we talk about FAPE, F-A-P-E, Free Appropriate Public Education. That's the first part of IDEA, which is the law of the land for our kiddos with disabilities. There's also the Americans with Disabilities Act, and more we're bringing that up in classroom situations, but mostly we look at IDEA. And IDEA says your child and every child in the United States is entitled to a free, appropriate public education, which stands for FAPE, FAPE. So when you're talking to the school, they're going to say, well, our offer of FAPE is, and that's what they always focus on, our offer of FAPE, our offer of FAPE. Well, the FAPE offer is here, right? So you're going to hear that term a lot. But we all need to remember that we are entitled to a free, appropriate public education in the least restrictive environment. And schools over the years, especially in these years when it's been hard economic times, right? Schools have the mission to teach all students, But as they get fewer and fewer dollars in which to teach them and more kids in the classroom because there's fewer and fewer dollars, it gets hard, right? And if you are a teacher, and I'm a former teacher, and you've got 30 students in a classroom and you've got one student who totally can do the work, but has behavior issues, a lot of your time standing in front of the classroom, teaching the classroom, is going to be spent dealing with the one student who has behavioral issues. It's a very real thing, right? Or if you need if you've got a student who needs a little bit more support because they just can't keep up, and you gotta be a little bit more on them, and so you say to the rest of the class, turn to page 32, but you've got one student who you can't say it just once, you need to say it twice, or maybe you need to hold up a sign that says turn to page 32 because they're a visual person, not an oral person, right? It takes time. There's a certain amount of time that it takes. And what we find is that if we don't properly train our teachers, a lot of teachers don't do well with that, and everybody suffers because of it. And so what does the school do? The school says, oh, this student can't be in this classroom, they need to be in a special day class. And if we do that often enough, the administrators start to say that to all kids who have any kind of a difference. And we see that in the 90s and when one of the things that's being discussed a lot right now in this election year is that for years, for decades, kids who had special needs just didn't come to school and they weren't entitled to that free education. Then they came, and very quickly everybody got moved into these special day classes. And for a lot of our kids on the autism spectrum, it's not the best fit. If you think about what the disability is with autism, the areas of disability are in communication and socialization, right? And being able to deal with sensory things and changes. It comes under the repetitive and restrictive issues. So if we are trying to truly educate these children and they have social deficits, taking and putting them in a classroom with only other children who have social deficits, gosh, how much progress are we going to see? Because nobody's going to be modeling the behavior that we're trying to get to. Now, I used to be of the mindset that every single child should be included. I really was. In fact, when we started the show, I was militant about that every single child should be included in general education. And I'm a former teacher who had kids in my classroom that had to have supports, right? So I know what it takes, I do, but we should be passionate about that as educators and former educators. But since that time, my head has been expanded a little bit to the fact that for some kids, it's not the best way to educate them. If the sensory issues are so overwhelming, we do need to put them in a different setting where we can take some of the sensory input and we can dim it down, educate them, desensitize them so that they can go back into the general education typical classroom. And that personally, I feel like that is what our goal should be. Everybody's got to take a look at it for themselves and say what is appropriate for their individual student, their individual child. But I can tell you that overwhelmingly, when people with a child with an autism diagnosis go in to do an IEP, it's much more prevalent that you're being offered a special day class than you're being offered full inclusion. And you need to know that the law is on your side, that you have the right for your child to be in the least restrictive environment in which they can have a floor of opportunity to access the curriculum. So if your child can do the work with support, meaning if need be, a one-on-one aide who sits there and instead of the teacher saying turn to page 45, that the aide helps the child, either gets it to page 45 or prompts the child to get it to page 45, or both, right? If that's what it takes for your child to succeed in the least restrictive environment, it doesn't matter how much it costs. And the school can't say, well, that just costs too much. We can't have all these kids with one-on-one aides. That's a whole lot of money. That's not legal. They can't even say it, let alone do it. So that's why this is important, and that's why I want you guys to know this term. Least restrictive environment, add it into your arsenal when you're in the IEP, and if they're saying, no, we want to move them to a special day class, or we want to continue the special day class, and you think that your child is a great candidate for going and you can see the benefits of them being in gen ed, whip out the LRE and go to town on them, okay? That's our jargon for the day. It's a good one. All right, moving on. We always have a question of the day for you, and you guys can answer this on Facebook. This is a topic that I swirl around with a lot of different people. What does inclusion mean to you? And it means something different to a lot of people. To me, it does not mean just parking the child in the classroom. I've seen really, really bad inclusion where kids are put in the classroom, but no support is given to anyone, to the child who has the disability or the difference, and to the other children who are around them. We can't just throw kids in and because you're throwing them into the deep end of the pool and hope that they're going to work it out on their own. To me, inclusion is, the teacher would get training in it and how to be truly inclusive and how to make her or his classroom work properly for all of the kids in the classroom. The kids would get some help and support in how to do that. And the person who has the difference or the disability would also get support and help and training, and even their parents and their family, so that it can all work together. Earlier this year, we talked to some folks from New Mexico who are getting the inclusion thing done and getting it done correctly. We have also, that's in Santa Fe. We also have in the past had folks from up in the Bay Area, Hope Tech, a school that has been getting it done for years. And here's the thing about it, is that when we do it and we do it properly, all of the kids benefit. If you think about it, for the kid who's in 4th grade who's neurotypical, when he is sitting next to a person who is on the spectrum, and he has to acknowledge that, okay, this person thinks differently than I do and maybe reacts differently than I do, that is going to better prepare that person to go into a world economy. It just is. And anybody who doesn't think so, step back for a second and look at it again, because it's clear that it does. Everyone needs to, I saw this clearly on Sunday. We went to the first Disability Pride Parade, and I thought to myself, my son and I have not had the opportunity to spend enough time around individuals who are in wheelchairs. Like, I forget and walk through, somebody used the term ableist, and I thought, oh, gosh, that's me. Because I forget sometimes how I set things up without having a thought about how will this work for somebody who does not have the abilities that I do, that I can walk across that threshold. How is that going to work for somebody else? I will tell you that when we went through a studio redesign, one of the things I asked for the designer, because in our old studio, it had a threshold. And it was really difficult, not impossible. We had been able to bring people in wheelchairs, but there's one guest in particular who I wanted to have on the show who is in a pretty big motorized wheelchair, and I knew for a fact that we could not make that work with the door. And I asked them to change the specs so that we can do that in this studio. It's still not going to be the easiest things because of some of the constraints, but it's totally, totally possible. I think it's important for all of us to have that mindset, to be thinking about how does this work for everyone. And who better than the autism community to start to think in terms of that, because if we can think in terms of that, then we can help others to think in terms of that. So anyway, we'd love to hear from you. What does inclusion mean to you? Because if we don't start to define it, we're never going to get there, right? And don't take my definition for it. Let's hear yours, because I'd like to add on to my definition. All right, moving on. We always have a topic of the week for you. Something that, we like to swirl part of the conversation over, and clearly one of the things that I want to talk about this week is meaningful inclusion, not just that, park the chair there kind of thing. But what does it mean when we as a society are including everyone? I love, there are people who say that if if we totally excluded anybody who had any disability, all the inventions in life that we would do without, and it's everything basically. Anything that's good, because they say that invention is the mother of necessity. Yes, I think I got that right. And so often people who have different needs have driven the conversation about, so let's make it this way. Truly inspirational for us to think about. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We got a big show for you, and some stuff that changed even as we were coming into the studio. So in just a few minutes, we're going to be joined by Jennifer Yakos, and she is from the Institute for Behavioral Training. We've been talking about IBT, the Institute for Behavioral Training, for weeks and months and not having somebody come on. And I asked Jennifer to come on with us today to talk specifically. There's so many trainings that they have for parents and for practitioners, but there's a whole segment of trainings that they have for educators. So I want to let my fellow teachers know what's available, and I want the parents to know what's available, because so often we're looking for a gift to give a teacher. And what better gift than the gift of education? And how about educating them to have true, meaningful inclusion? So Jennifer Yakos is going to join us to talk about that. Then, because it's Thursday, we have a new segment that's on the show, Legal Support with Bonnie Yates. Bonnie Yates is going to be with us, and she's got 2 questions to answer about classroom and having somebody who's on the spectrum in a classroom setting, as a matter of fact. And a little bit later in the show, around in the second hour, the 15 mark in the second hour, we're going to have Christina Adams. I mentioned this yesterday, that she is, we're doing a whole segment with her that you're going to start to see it's going to be a month at least before we get to them, but some really great segments about things that she discovered. She's the autism mom who wrote the book that changed my life. It's called A Real Boy, and man, saved us and got us started on a great path. I said I got great advice, started with that book. And she is somebody who's gotten very interested in camel milk, and we were talking a little bit about camel milk and biomedical interventions yesterday. So Christina is going to give us her take on this latest news story about the boy who was hospitalized after doing some naturalistic autism therapies and treatments and supplements. And then right at the end of the show, I just found out as we were going live, we are going to have 2 very special guests who are going to be with us. Matt Asner and the president of the Autism Society of America, Scott Badish. They're going to drop in for the last few minutes of the show, and that's going to be really exciting. So you're not going to want to miss it. A minute of it. We're going to take a break, and up first is Jennifer Yakos from the Institute for Behavioral Training. Stick with us.
Welcome everybody to our 5K, 10K run and family festival.
So the Act Today for Military Families Run and Festival is a race that benefits military children with autism. So we help a lot of the families around the country whose parents serve in the military.
I'm an autism mom, but also a military wife, and I'm so excited to be here at Act Today's 6th annual run. I've never missed one. It's something that really helps this situation. Is fabulous because there's no other organization like it.
San Diego has some of the highest concentration of military in the country, if not the world, and a lot of my friends are military and are affected by autism disorder. And so for me to do some little thing to the people that protect our freedoms is important.
It's hard enough to parent a kiddo with autism. Can you imagine parenting a child when you move on average every 2 years, you have a parent member deployed or in training? Our kids don't like change. These kids are subject to constant change.
My name's Tom Leahy. I am president of One Hope Wine. We are the title sponsor of the 6th annual Act Today Family Festival. We have been the title sponsor every single year, which we're very proud of. We've worked with Act Today for 9 years, which we are also very proud of.
My name is Megan Martin. I'm a licensed and certified genetic counselor at Lineagen, and we provide genetic testing. Lineagen are strong supporters of all families with autism, but particularly families in the military.
Double stroller, so he should get double the amount of applause.
Hey, my name is Yarick Connor. I am in the United States Navy stationed here at Navy Information Operations Command, San Diego. I am a first-class petty officer and been here for 3 years so far. This event is important to me. Growing up in a family, my baby sister has Down syndrome, and just living through that and being 17 years older than she is, understand the importance of family, understand the importance of how everybody is important to what we do here, not only in our country, but what we do throughout the world.
For the 10K, here are the top female. Here we go. First place with a time of 42. Arciga, bueno. Good job. And third place, Alex Rodriguez.
Go to acttodayformilitaryfamilies.org and help our military families impacted by autism.
5K, red bibs are the 10K. Here comes some more finishers.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm so excited because we have joining us via Skype and telephone so that we get really good sound, Jennifer Yakos from the Institute for Behavioral Training. She is a clinical trainer. And Jennifer, they're recalling you on Skype because we've lost your picture, but we still have you on the phone. And I want to, but she's gonna recall you on Skype. But so excited to have you on the phone. We have had Jennifer on the show before. She is an amazing woman, and the things that she has done in the field of autism are awe-inspiring. No, truly. And I'm so excited because you know, when we talk about, there are times when we have Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh on the show, and we'll talk about, and we're getting a little bit of an echo now, so you'll need to remute everything as you come back on. But when we have Dr. Granpeesheh on the show and we talk about the Institute for Behavioral Training, one of the things that we neglect to talk about are the brilliant minds that are involved with the Institute for Behavioral Training, and one of those is you, and of course Cecilia Knight, and you've got more staff over there. They're really, you guys are really sharp people who have worked in the field of autism for multiple decades. So thrilled to have you here. And I asked you to come in particular, Jennifer, to talk about training for teachers and educators through IBT. Because I am sick to my eyeballs of people telling me that they don't have the ability to train educators, and that they can't afford to train educators, that it's too expensive to train them to be able to have really top-notch education happening in a general ed classroom or even a special classroom, a special day class, because you guys have training for them and it is so inexpensive that it's shocking. And I want to empower parents, even if your school district is saying, we can't afford to do it. We as parents can gift our kids' teachers these video trainings where they will get top-notch training, and it really can turn things around. And it's super duper expensive. It's less expensive than anything else you were going to go. If you were going to go buy a coffee mug at Starbucks, it's going to cost you more than, right? I mean, I'm not kidding here.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let me shut up and
Absolutely.
let you talk. So talk to us a little bit
Well,
about what's in there for educators.
Okay, well, thank you for that lovely intro, Shannon. You are a gem. I just a little bit of background. We would encounter the same thing over and over again. You know, we would be asked to go out and train school staff, train agencies, and you know, there's just a general lack of accessibility to good quality ABA training. And, you know, so we wanted to make a product that could be disseminated and that individuals in any school location, basically, and anywhere in the world, could access a specific training on how to use ABA in the classroom or to teach a particular skill. So we finally were able to accomplish this, and we were so excited to be able to provide it to educators and for parents to sort of show their teachers or their school districts, hey, there's this great library of trainings that are very accessible that you could watch on your own computer, in your own classroom, in your own house, on your own time. And it's not going to require somebody to come out and, you know, fly out to your school and, you know, take up a ton of time and be a really, you know, huge expense to your budget. So we have developed, I believe we have 40 different training modules specifically for teachers. And so these really sort of cover a really vast you know, a really kind of cover the whole gamut
Yes.
of what parents might be looking for in terms of passing on good quality information and training to the school staff that is working with their child. So we have trainings that cover just, first of all, some of the basics. So an introduction to autism spectrum disorder. Knowing family dynamics. What are some of the obstacles that are common to families facing an autism diagnosis? What are the basics of ABA? And understanding just the basic functions of behavior and, you know, how to use the three-term contingency, how to use a discrete trial, how to prompt and say prompts not only for maybe beginning learners, but also advanced learners, shaping and change. So we have, you know, all the behavior analytic topics, but then we also talk specifically about topics that really relate to school. So things such as how to be successful on the playground, how to be successful in a school assembly, how to set your student up for success in groups, you know, things like that. We also focus on teaching specific skills. So we have a whole section of modules devoted to teaching functional communication. So whether a student might be learning to speak vocally or communicate through picture exchange or augmentative devices, we have a whole series of modules on that topic. Positive behavior supports, knowing how to read a behavior plan and implement really positive, proactive behavior supports in the classroom. So the thing that's really great about this that I'm really excited about is we try to prepare a package or a product that's usable for people, that's not overwhelming. And we all know teachers are stretched so thin, you know, resource-wise, time-wise. So they can literally pick and choose, or you as a parent can pick and choose, okay, I think these 3 modules might be really beneficial. So you're not required to sit through hours and hours and hours of training. You can specifically use your time very wisely and only pick maybe, okay, this topic is what I think is really going to help me right now. You know, you also have the option of watching, you know, the whole library of trainings or even chunks of, you know, different portions, but kind of allows teachers to pick and choose things that are maybe going to give them the most bang for their buck. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I think this is so important, and I think you've done it in such a smart way. So as you said, that they can pick and choose. And I'm just like looking at some of the different titles here and looking at, because, you know, holidays are coming up and Teacher Appreciation Week is coming up. And and when you think about, as a parent, what you really want to give teachers, and I'll tell you something, if it's a good teacher, what they want to do is learn more. I don't know a single good teacher who would not be thrilled to get some more training on how to deal with behavioral issues in the classroom. And I'm not just talking about autism, right?
Absolutely.
Every single teacher has to deal with behavioral issues in the classroom, and unless you know what you're doing, it can be overwhelming and make you dislike your job and not be able to do your job. So even if you just gave a behavior management gift certificate for them to be able to watch that training, it'd be a powerful, powerful gift to give a parent.
Completely.
Or to give from a parent to a teacher.
Exactly. Even one of them, like using token economy systems or putting visual schedules in the classroom. Those are two modules that literally could change the entire outlook of the day for a student. And by using those proactive approaches, you're obviously making the whole classroom run more effectively, and the teacher's, day becomes much more, stress-free, and you're not dealing with as many behaviors. So absolutely.
Absolutely. And there are other ones that are on my hit parade too that, the stuff on visual supports, great thing to be doing at the beginning of the year, at this time of year. Positive behavior supports, because a lot of times we have teachers who want to get punitive really quickly. I don't see it on here, but I know, because I've recommended it in the past, that there's one about dealing with safety drills with our kiddos who are on the spectrum. That I think that's a great gift to give to a teacher to ensure that your child is going to be safe during those drills. And these start at as low as, I'm looking down the list, I know that in all of IBT that there are some that are as low as $7. For the teacher ones, I'm seeing them as low as $10, my friends.
Yes.
$10. Yes. And you can gift that to a teacher. Now, if a teacher were to want to do all of the trainings, and they have the potential to learn continuing education credits by doing that, don't they?
It depends on the specific district or state that they work in. There are different requirements for continuing education, so it would be something that could be a possibility depending on the area that they are living in and what the requirements are.
Love it.
But and this goes for all of our e-learning modules, whether it's a teacher or a parent or a direct, instructor. After each module, there's a short quiz just to ensure that that person is actually taken on board some of the things that, were presented. It's not challenging if you've watched the video. And then once the quiz is completed and passed, then it gives you the opportunity to print out a certificate showing that you completed that training on that particular topic. So again, depending on the local and the statewide requirements for continuing education, that may or may not be able to be used, but it's definitely something to look into. And obviously that's going to give the teacher even more motivation.
Absolutely.
To knock out some of those credits. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yes. So again, and we talk about this all the time on the show, to find these trainings, you go to ibehavioraltraining.com. You will see when you go there, there are so many things that they offer there. You can click on the top, there's a bar, you can click on educator there. You can click on the one that says e-learning and then click on educator. But tour around and look at everything that they have to offer, because you might find that there's other things that you want to gift to other people. And obviously, if there's a school district that's out there, Jennifer, who's interested in buying these in bulk, can they reach out to you guys and perhaps get an even deeper discount?
Absolutely. We offer group discounts to already many different schools and agencies. So that is something, if they contact us at IBT, that we can set up some, group deals for them.
So if you're a school or you're on your PTA at your school and you want to talk about that, go to ibehavioraltraining.com. There's a contact us button there and reach out to them to get a quote for that. Jennifer, we are out of time, but this is so helpful, and thank you guys for doing this really important work and for making this available, because this empowers all of us. It gives us the tools so that we don't have to just sit there with our hands up in the air and go, I don't know what to do. My child's teacher isn't doing the right thing, or the teacher saying, I don't know what to do. And, you know, a lot of times the teacher will say to the parent, well, what is it that I'm supposed to do? We no longer have to be the experts. We can put an expert on their computer for them to be able to learn from. This is a brilliant, brilliant thing. Again, ibehavioraltraining.com. Will you please give everyone our love?
Oh, I will, absolutely. And same to you. Thanks for all the amazing things you do, Shannon.
Oh, no, this is so great. Thank you for everything that you guys do. We so appreciate it. And maybe we'll have you back on to talk about it again before the holidays. But thank you so much. Take care.
Absolutely. My pleasure.
Bye-bye. So that was Jen Yakos, who was on the phone with us. This is empowerment right here, my friends. You have the ability to gift these things. If the teacher isn't getting it right, don't let that go. Don't let that go. I will tell you, I have gifted this in the past, and even if the teacher doesn't utilize it, it gives you power, because then you sit in the IEP and say, I gave training and you guys didn't use it. What am I supposed to do, right? And that has some weight. We're going to continue in this vein. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to get Bonnie Yates on the line. She's a special education attorney, and she's got a couple of questions to answer. Somebody wrote in and said, can we still send in legal questions? Please send them in now, because I put the questions together the week before. So send them in whenever you have them, and I select the ones for next week tomorrow. So send it in right now. We're going to take a break and back with Bonnie Yates. Stick with us.
Hi guys, welcome back to Smarty. For this month, I figured we're going to do a super special portrait that is in the theme of October, which means spooky eyes that follow you as you walk around. In this activity, you and your child are going to work on emotions and socio-dramatic play. So let's get started. The materials you'll be needing are a camera, a ping pong ball, X-Acto blade, tape, and a marker. And if your kids are up to it, props and costumes. Now let's take some photos. It's a great time to work on emotions and socio-dramatic play. Let's get our props.
See all the colors in the sky tonight. It's time to let the sunshine hide.
Once you've finished your photo shoot with your child, select one of the photos and print it out on a large piece of paper. Now that you've selected your photo, you're going to take an X-Acto blade and just cut out the eyes from it. This part of the activity is definitely only for the adults. Now that you've finished cutting out the eyes, what we're going to do next is take a ping pong ball and cut it in half. You'll see why in just a moment. So with the ping pong balls, we're going to create the illusion of the following eyes. So what you're going to do is take a marker and you're going to make a dot in the very, very center. You're going to want to make it like the same size of what the iris was in the photo. Now that the ping pong balls are done, I'm just going to tape them to the back of the photograph. So does it look like she's following you? Well, I hope you enjoyed this activity for Smarty. Until next time, craft on, guys.
Can you see me flying by your side?
I'm very excited to be here at Denim & Diamonds. This is a fantastic night, supported by so many incredible people, and to see the kind of change and the kind of help that's being given.
It's kind of like going to the Oscars, and it's just been growing ever since, and we're overwhelmed at the support from the community.
I first want to thank everybody for coming out and really helping this Denims & Diamonds fundraiser, because autism has affected so many people, and the work that they've been doing is just off the charts and just wonderful.
As a mom, I'm grateful that I was managed to get the intervention for my daughter when she was young. So it's important to see that all kids can get the same type of intervention.
You with the side eyes, don't be discouraged, oh I
thrilled to be able to raise funds for things that are so vital, you know, like safety equipment, helmets, or fences so the kids don't run away, or iPads so they can learn to communicate.
There's still so much more to do, and we're here to lend our little hand and make this thing a global thing.
Welcome back to Autism Live. If you've been watching the show, you know we added a new segment last week. We're taking on legal issues, and we have with us on the phone and via Skype, special education attorney Bonnie Yates is back with us. We had her last week, and she answered 2 questions for us last week. But I got to say this, Bonnie, there was a question about bullying, and your answering about bullying was one of the best things I think we've ever had on the show, and people have been going nuts for it. If you haven't seen it yet, make sure you go to our Facebook page or our YouTube page to watch it. It's like 5 minutes of sheer perfection. And we're thrilled that this is a weekly segment, and we want to welcome Bonnie back. And Bonnie, before we start, we want to thank you and thank the law offices of, and I'm not going to pronounce it right, so tell us what the law office name is.
The law offices of Hirji, Hirji, and Chau, Chaullp.
Well, and we thank you and we thank them for making this possible. And before we start, though, we have a disclaimer, and this week I'm going to have you read it for us.
Okay, that's good. We have a disclaimer, and then we have a disclaimer within a disclaimer. Good morning, everyone. My disclaimer within a disclaimer is that last week I went back and listened to my presentation, and I thought that it really suffered from me reading the answers rather than having them in mind and speaking them. So I'm going to try to do better this week. But the legal disclaimer is just this. When I give you legal advice, it's basically legal advice of a general nature. It's not intended to apply to your specific case. It's based on California law and federal law. So if you're in another state or another country, these answers wouldn't necessarily be correct. But since the federal law is operative in the 50 U.S. states, there's probably a fair amount of commonality for the answers that I give, even if you're in a different state. But this is intended to be legal advice of a general nature to get people's feet wet and understanding how special education works. And it's not intended to be a substitute for, you know, a specific consultation with an attorney that's knowledgeable about special education and disability discrimination in your own state. So that was me speaking the disclaimer rather than looking at my cheat sheet, but I'm going to look and see if I forgot anything. No, okay, that's what you need to know about what we're going to do today here. So the other thing I want to say is Shannon is incredibly generous, and
I don't think so.
You know, I appreciate a lot what you said, and if people have more questions about bullying or anything else after the show, we'll try to give you some follow-up information. But today, we're not going to talk about bullying. We're going to talk about another topic or two that I also consider to be very hot topics. I like the fact that the audience is writing in about stuff that's really salient. That's, you know, way to go.
Don't we love that?
So anyway.
I'm going to start with the first question, Bonnie. What are the rules for observation in a classroom? The other day, Dr. Doreen mentioned that if something is going on with our kids, it is advisable to have someone observe at school, if they will let you. My son's school used to let people observe whenever you ask, but now they're saying that my expert can only come for 20 minutes at a time, and that an administrator will need to be there at the same time. When I ask why only 20 minutes, they tell me because it's disruptive. Is this really all we're allowed, or is it just something they made up? How is an expert supposed to see a difficulty with transitioning if they're only there to see 20 minutes? and they said that they live in the state of California.
Okay, so when I saw this question, I was on fire because it's actually a subject really near and dear to my heart. And this is what I wanted to say about this hocus pocus about, how the rule is 20 minutes. When I go to a car dealership and I want to buy a car, they let me look at the car, they let me ride in the car, they let me stroke the car. They want me to see the car because they're banking on the fact that the more time I spend with the car, the more likely it is I want to buy it. Okay, now that's not exactly the way the district is showing you their classroom. They're actually doing the exact opposite. They're banking on the fact that the less you see, the better. So there's been an evolution in this area, a really, really interesting evolution. It started out that if you wanted to have a classroom observation, but you'd already filed for due process, the hearing office would say no on the grounds that you only wanted the observation for purposes of the due process hearing and not because there was any chance that you were actually going to accept the placement. And so in the old days, we could file for due process. It wouldn't immediately go to hearing. We would try to get the classroom observation, and we'd be shot down. So in, I think, 2005, we had a kid in the Long Beach School District, and he was not eligible for special education. He was a high-functioning autistic young kid, and his family was in Long Beach. So we approached Long Beach and asked them to assess him for eligibility. They found him eligible, and they offered him a classroom placement in an emotionally disturbed class in the Long Beach School District. Well, this has been over the course of several months, and so by this time the parents had privately placed him at the Help Group, which is a pretty well-known California program for kids with autism. So the district offers this classroom, and we have to look at it to determine whether or not it's a suitable placement, because if it is, obviously we can't go to hearing and win. If you privately place the kid, you have to show that the district's program was inappropriate as well as that the program you picked was appropriate. So we asked to see it, and they said no, citing the old rule about, the fact that you couldn't request an assessment like this if you'd already filed for due process. So we decided that we wanted to litigate the issue, and so we filed a lawsuit. And we lost at the trial court level, but we won on appeal, and what we ended up with was a case that substantially rewrote the observation statute in California. So the case it's very, very interesting case, and I don't think it's interesting because it's my case. I think it's interesting because it was an interesting issue. So the case is called Benjamin G. versus Special Education Hearing Office, and if Shannon wants to make it available to people later, we'll get a copy to her. Okay. But essentially, the court went back and looked at this question of whether you should be entitled to have an observation, even if it's for purposes of having your expert testify at hearing in a due process hearing. And the court said some very interesting things. These are people that don't really do special education, but they boned up on it, the Court of Appeals in California. And they came back and they said, running through is this idea of parental participation at every step of the process. And, parents are at a disadvantage because the district knows more, and basically the family has the burden of proof, blah, blah, blah. So it would be very important for the family's own ability to participate at hearing to have this expert assessment. And so even if the only reason you want it is so that your expert can testify at hearing about the suitability or lack thereof of the district's offered placement, we think that's a perfectly good reason. And then the district had thrown out another argument, which was that if the court did decide an observation was indicated in some cases, that should only be when the district did agreed to an independent educational evaluation at district expense, whereas in our case, we weren't trying for that. We had just hired a private person, and they came back and they said that doesn't matter. So shortly after Benjamin G., California Education Code 56329 was amended to conform with this decision. And so essentially, the rules on classroom observation are now codified there in California. And I'm just going to, now I'm cheating, I'm looking at the statute, but basically what it says is if the district did an observation, or, and this is really important, has a policy that allows for in-class observation of a pupil, then you get an equivalent opportunity to observe whether it's an IEE or a private evaluation. So that's really good for us because if the districts screw around and they don't allow an observation, we can make a motion to compel the observation under this section. So it's really been interesting because they still fight us on observation. They don't like them. They don't want us to see. They're not confident that they'll be able to persuade, the expert that it's an appropriate program. And so they still fight us on it, but we have a lot more in our quiver now in terms of fighting back. So the language in Benjamin G may be very interesting to parents in terms of seeing how the court talked about this whole idea process and parental participation. What Benjamin G didn't anticipate, or maybe they did, but these things tend to be decided on narrow grounds, was the sneaky ways that districts would try to get around the new rules on observation, and they do it a couple ways. One, they invoke this 20-minute rule. Well, the 20-minute rule is based on their visitor policy, usually, that says that, when parents come to visit the classroom, they can't be there more than 20 minutes. This is not a visit of that sort, and it's controlled by either in California, Benjamin G, or 56329 of the Education Code. 20 minutes has no value in hearing. It has no probative value whatsoever. It's useless. Don't do it. And along those lines, if an expert observes for less than 90 minutes, I don't think that it's particularly useful either. So you have to insist on 90 minutes. Now, when you insist on 90 minutes or 2 hours, they're going to come back and they're going to say, yeah, we want you to do it on successive days. And that stinks because that means the expert may have to drive, 6 additional hours or something, depending on how far away they are, adding much expense to the parent's tab. And so that's a form of harassment, and it should be fought back against via a motion or via, a strongly worded letter or whatever. I'm actually having a call this afternoon because I have a dispute with a district. They're saying that the expert can come for 90 minutes, but she has to do it on 2 days. And as your person pointed out, you may need longer in order to figure out really what's happening. If you chop the day up into little 20-minute increments and make somebody come back 5 times, it's entirely possible that they won't see much of anything, and that's the idea. So a practice tip would be when you go to the IEP, before you request your observation, if they've recently done an assessment, you get very detailed answers from them about how they assess, where, how long, was it 1 session, was it 5 sessions, and you nail them on the amount of time they spent. And then when you ask for your observation, you remind them you're entitled to an equivalent opportunity.
Ooh,
So,
I love that.
You can see I'm all fired up about this topic because of the basic unfairness of it. And then there's one more just little aspect, another level of this, which is we've been asking for years when they come back and they say, get rid of the card program, it's not necessary, we can use the district aid. We say, great. So that's an aspect of placement, because placement is defined by facilities, location, and personnel in California. Let us see this aid that's going to be primarily responsible for the student's education. If they're going to be with them 40 hours a week, we deserve to look at the aid. And believe me, we get into some very hot discussions about that because you think the districts want us to come observe their aid, have an expert observe their aid, no such thing. So that's observation. You always got to see. You always got to get somebody in there to see the classroom. You don't know what's going on until you do. So that's what I have to say about observation.
That is awesome, Bonnie. That's some great information. I love that. Okay, moving on, because I know you've got limited time. Our next question is coming to us from the state of Maryland. They said, I live in Maryland and I have a son with an ASD diagnosis. He has a 504 plan. I've asked repeatedly for my son's school to give him an IEP. They keep telling me that I have to prove that his autism diagnosis impedes his academics in order for him to be eligible for an IEP. We have a diagnosis from 2 outside sources. What more do I have to provide, and do I have to pay for it?
Okay, the answer to the last 2 questions is nothing and no. So But I have to back up and say, I forgot to say, the argument that the observation would be disruptive is ridiculous. It would be no more disruptive than their observation was. Now, coming back to your question, a 504 plan is simply a 504 is a non-discrimination statute. It basically just means that you are not going to treat this person with a disability differently than a person that's non-disabled. And we can have a separate segment on 504 plans and why they're not very useful, because there's really no ability to enforce them. But a 504 plan for an autistic kid is sort of a joke in my book. I mean, the writer mentions that she's in Maryland, so I'm answering this under California law. But, California law, as far as the definition of autism, really parallels the federal statute, which would apply in Maryland. So she's got two assessments. I don't know who did them, what the qualifications of the people are, or what they say, but I'm assuming they say that as far as the student goes, he does have needs for special education and related services, even if he's functioning at grade level academically. So that's my assumption. Now, there's a case I wasn't able to run down, but I can if people want. It's from Backseat. It's one of these cases where it was a high-functioning autism or Asperger's person who didn't have poor grades, and so the argument was that they don't need special education and related services to access the curriculum. So we want to look at the question of what that means, access the curriculum. Now, first of all, as far as autism goes, the federal definition, now I am going to read, so forgive me, but autism means a developmental disability significantly affecting verbal and nonverbal communication and social interactions, generally evident before age 3, and adversely affecting a child's educational performance. So obviously we meet the criteria for autism, and we have to show an adverse impact on educational performance. I'm going to come back to that. Other characteristics often associated with autism are engagement in repetitive activities and stereotype movements, resistance to environmental change or changing daily routines, and unusual responses to sensory experience. Now, I wanted to read this because the definition was just changed in 2014, and it really does parallel the federal statute. So you're looking for something that adversely affects educational performance. Educational performance is not defined as narrowly as the districts would like it to be. Districts are responsible for providing special education and related services if, absent those things, the person is not going to be able to transition to adulthood and vocational employment. So in other words, if you're getting A's, B's, and C's and D's, but you have behaviors, or you're so shy that you don't know how to interact with your peers, or you're having executive functioning problems, such that whenever the time comes that you're going to need to do the job interview, and you're going to flunk the job interview, you're entitled to special education to remediate those particular difficulties. So I'm assuming that in addition to looking at academic learning in the classroom, the two assessments that the mother from Maryland has talk about these behavioral deficits, executive functioning deficits, and so on. And there should be goals written to address, attention, executive functioning, social behavior, withdrawal, etc. And because there are needs in those areas, and those things, when remediated, let you be more likely to be successful in vocational employment, you are entitled to have an IEP, even if your grades are, C grades. IDEA has a low standard in terms of what's acceptable. You just have to do a C grade or better. But that doesn't end the analysis. So what should the mother do? She's got 2 assessments. She doesn't want to spend any more money. How is she to attack the finding of ineligibility? Well, basically, she's entitled to an eligibility hearing at which her experts will testify as to why her son or daughter needs special education to address executive functioning behavior, socialization, and so on. And that ought to take care of the matter. I have a hard time believing that a hearing officer is going to say a high-functioning autistic child who's, been evaluated for the ADOS or some other gold standard by a, doctoral level person is just not, going to have problems or need special education. It's not going to fly, so the district's basically bluffing you, and you've got to call them on it. And you need to get a lawyer to do that. So that's how I would answer the second question, Shannon.
Okay, I love that, and I do think that there are many times that we have to lawyer up. But I'm just curious, I've never heard about an eligibility hearing before. How do you file for an eligibility hearing?
Okay, what would happen is the district would have done an assessment, and so and their assessment would have led to the finding that you're not eligible. So you would file a request for due process hearing on the grounds that the district's evaluation was inappropriate.
Okay.
And the response would be you would present your two evaluations.
Okay, so it is a due process. You do have to go to due process.
It is a due process. It is a due process. It's an interesting question as to whether you could ask for services in the same hearing if you were found to be eligible, or whether you'd have to have a second hearing. One would hope that you could, bundle everything together, and you probably could, but that's how you address it.
Okay. Bonnie, we appreciate you so much. These are great answers. This has me so excited, this new segment. We thank you for your time. We thank everyone at the law firm. I'm going to learn how to say it. Hariji?
Okay, I'll help you.
Okay.
Hariji and Chow, LLP. We're in Culver City. The phone number I gave last week, I'll give it again, 310-391-0330. We love to talk to parents, and I'm really fired up about this whole segment of Autism Live, so thank you for including me again.
Thank you. This has been awesome for us. And we're encouraging everybody. We had people write in today and say, was it too late to write in today? But I told them, write in today so that we've got the questions for next week. So if you want to get in on this, send your questions the week before. We like it to get the questions early.
Please.
All right.
Have a good week.
Thank you, Bonnie. We appreciate you so much. Have a great week. Bye-bye.
Okay.
I did not even mention that Bonnie is a very proud autism mom, and she and her son are featured on the DVD Recovered. And you've seen her son on our show. If you don't recall, you can see Nick in a video that he and I, we drive, we go to In-N-Out. It's called Nick Yates, The Road to Recovery. Check that out. All right, we're going to take a break and go to the A word. We're running a little bit late here, but when we come back, it's going to be time for Christina Adams is going to be joining us, and we're going to talk a little bit about camel milk and about biomedical interventions, her response to this 3-year-old being hospitalized for some of the natural supplements that he was taking, and they included amongst them camel milk, and we want to hear what Christina Adams has to say about that. Stick with us.
Jack, hi. Hi. What are you doing? What are you doing, Jack? Say, I'm playing. Or I'm watching.
I'm watching.
You're watching. Are you watching me? What's this?
No.
What's this? What are these? What are these, Jack?
Eyes.
What is this? Are you looking? Jack, what's this? What is it?
No.
Yeah? So Suzanne, we actually have 3 new programs in his logbook. They are actions, body parts, and categories.
I noticed there's a notebook with pictures of Ellie. Is that part of it?
Oh no, that's actually, it's something really cool. Did you want to see it?
Sure.
It's something that his mom made, I think, before he started talking. So what it is it's just things that are in his environment that his mom cleverly made, which is really cool. It has like different foods that he eats, and I guess she did her own kind of can you point to the dog? What does it say? Kind of like her own kind of discrimination training, I guess, for him. Body parts. It's a really cute little book that she made. And he can label all of them, huh? What are these? What are these? Feet. What are these? Right here.
Toes.
Very good. All right, Jack. So we're going to be doing actions. We're matched on waving in a field of 2 with an unknown, just to see if he can discriminate between the 2. Give me waving. Good job. What is it?
Waving.
Waving. Very good. Good job, Jack Riley.
Jessica points at the correct answer after Jack Riley motions to the incorrect picture to ensure he answers correctly. This is called errorless learning. The reason we do this is that the more opportunities he has to practice the right behavior and be rewarded, the quicker he will learn it and succeed. It's positive reinforcement. Think of it like this. If you were constantly being told what you were doing was wrong and weren't offered help, you'd become frustrated and give up. But if you were assisted, you'd keep trying and eventually succeed independently.
Give me waving. Yay! What is it?
Waving.
Perfect. Very good. You get all your stickers. Then what do you get?
Whoa.
Perfect. Nice job. There you go. So the next one we're going to do is body part, and he is on mouth. So the SD is what is it, and we point to the body part on his own body, and he has to be able to label it. And he's been saying nose with me, because I guess it's close proximity, but let's see if you know it today, mister. What is it?
Nose.
Say mouth.
Mouth.
Good. What is it?
Mouth.
Very good. There you go. There's one sticker. Okay. Ready? Look at me.
Welcome.
Good job. Okay. What is it? Say mouth.
Mouth.
Good. What is it?
Mouth.
Nice job. Oops. Okay. Ready? One more sticker, okay? Okay. Hey, put your arms down, Rockstar. Thank you. What is it?
Mouth.
Yay! All right. High five. All right. You got your 3 stickers.
3 stickers.
There you go. What do you want?
Phone.
Say, I want phone.
Go.
Good job. Here you go. And with the receptive labels that we've been working on with him, he knows so many labels now. What's that? Say bear.
Bear.
What is it? What is it? What's this?
Tackle.
What's this?
Fire.
What is this?
Nipple.
That we move into categories. We're having him give us the picture of the category and having him label it as whatever category pertains to, like the food. Give me food. Where's the food? Good job. What is it?
Food.
Very good. Nice job. Give me food.
Soup. What? Food.
Okay, give me food. What is it?
Food.
Food. Good job.
Horse.
Oh, look, Jack Riley, look. Oh, I'm going in the garage. You want to go inside with me? Come on. Let's go inside. You want to go inside? Go inside. Whee! I'm here. Woo! Ready? There he goes. Say, let's go.
Let's go.
All right.
Jessica and Jack Riley are playing together so he can practice how to appropriately play with toys.
Are you all done, cars? Or you want more? All done. Okay. All right. That's okay. Okay. All done blocks too? Okay. All right. Here, Jack Riley. Let's go for a walk. Sit down. Okay. Ready to go for a walk?
Yes.
Okay. Say, let's go.
Let's go.
Say, let's go, Suzanne.
Let's go, Mr. Jen.
Okay. She will come with us.
Coming.
Say, come on, Mom.
Come on, Mom.
I'm coming. I'm coming.
Last week during clinic, Cheryl and Mike brought up how outings had been difficult with Jack Riley not complying with stop or refusing to walk. Sabrina, their supervisor, suggested that they practice this skill with a therapist at least once a week until the problem behavior becomes better.
You can practice stop in the rain. Okay, let's go. Stop. Yay!
welcome back to Autism Live. We're so fortunate. We're having such a wonderful show here today, and we're just adding on to it because joining us via Skype is Christina Adams. If you watch the show, you know that we've had her on the show before. She's an amazing woman, an amazing autism mother, and an author. And now all of a sudden we're getting an echo. So Christina, we're gonna which one is it, Samantha? Is it my end or her end that we're getting the? Samantha's working on something. But in any case, so we have Christina Adams right here. As I was saying, she's an amazing author and an amazing autism mom. She is the author of the book that changed my world. It's called A Real Boy. If you haven't read it yet, you need to. We're all waiting for Christina to write her next book because it was a game changer, not just for me, but for a lot of people. It's a real boy. But on her journey, Christina has found many things, including camel milk. It's been something that she's been very interested in, and whenever anything comes up to do with camel milk, she is the expert that we go to. And yesterday, you know, on the show, Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson and I discussed a new news story in which the headline said that a boy was hospitalized for doing supplements having to do with autism, and it listed among them camel milk and silver. And then in the depth of the article, it lists many more things. But we said yesterday that we were going to have Christina on today to talk about it. So Christina, this headline's a little bit on the crazy side for me, and we want to hear from you what your thoughts, because I know you've got some expertise and some doctors to back up your expertise.
I do, Shannon, and thanks for having me on the show today. I love being on Autism Live. Hi, everyone. Well, I'm glad you set that up by doing a little discussion yesterday, because I was hard at work trying to figure out what lies behind this kind of shrieking headline. Here's just one example. Deadly risk of autism, of alternative therapies for children, all over the British papers especially. So when I saw that, I was like, let's find out what's going on here. So I have been able to get information dealing with 4 doctors from 3 different countries. So I'd like to think it's pretty comprehensive. So let's take a little step back. So there's a case report that came out in Medical Journal, and here it is. The title is Severe Hypercalcemia in a Child Secondary to Use of Alternative Therapies. So basically there was a 4-year-old boy. All he had had as a medical history was autism spectrum, and he was taken to the emergency room in London, apparently, and he was vomiting, he had weight loss, loss of appetite, and a couple of other problems, and his calcium level was very high. So they had to do a lot of things to get him better, and hats off to the doctor that they did. So they had determined, after he'd been treated for a while, that he was taking about 12 different supplements, as they called them. There was a naturopath in England that had been prescribing them. This was vitamin D, calcium, cod liver oil, silver, biocare, liposome, whatever that is. I'm sure someone watching knows. Alturas, bromelain, zinc, trace minerals, Epsom salt baths, AFP, peptides, and sodium chloride. Now, some of those, according to one of my doctor acquaintances, are enzymes that can be pretty strong. However, they didn't really know what else could be happening other than the supplements. And again, these are your more mainstream kind of medical doctors, so they were not naturopaths. They did check out a lot of things. They did rule out a lot of things, and they determined, well, we really don't know why this child is having such a high calcium intake that it's making him sick. So they were able to take off the supplements and do different things, and he got better, and he has not had a problem since, I'm told. But one of the things that bothered me was just labeling all supplements as, potentially dangerous, and also throwing camel milk on there. I was like, wait a minute, camel milk is a food. It's been used for thousands of years. People live off of it. So let's not be throwing that just willy-nilly into this mix. So anyway, Shannon and I have been able to talk to a few doctors about this. So what do you think we'd like to do? Should we go ahead and tell you what their opinion is?
We would love to hear what their opinion is, because I think it's really important when people start lumping things together. For me, this was as crazy as if your child suddenly started vomiting and the headline in the newspaper said this child was eating toast.
To me, it was like, someone gets violently sick from bread and cheese from the supermarket. Now, if there was a poison thing behind it, then yeah, but honestly, that's like a food product.
Exactly.
I said the first thing is, this is, camel milk is a food, but these other things, let's find out what's going on with this case, because it didn't really make a lot of sense to me.
Absolutely. So let's hear about what your doctor said. Yeah, let's hear.
So talking to these different doctors, and we have 4 doctors from 3 different countries. So first of all, I started by writing to the doctor that actually wrote this case report, Dr. Boyd, and I'm really thankful to her for corresponding with me. And she also had said that it seems like they don't really know why this happened. It's kind of unusual. He didn't have a lot of underlying conditions that might have caused made him more prone to hypercalcemia, and interestingly, Williams syndrome can be one of those. That's a genetic disorder, and also malignancies, but he did not have lymphoma, things like that. So they pretty much feel that it's because the calcium supplements or the D supplements, something like that, may have actually not been properly bought and used. The vitamin D supplement was bought online, and it maybe was not the correct concentration, or something about his individual body was secondary, because of the combination of calcium and D products. So they don't know. Maybe he was getting more D than he was supposed to get, because the D that the naturopath had described falls well within the parameters of safety. But being bought online, you can't know exactly what was in the supplement. You can't know if it was calculated incorrectly.
Absolutely.
So it's still kind of a mystery.
We had a huge case here in the United States where there were mainstream children's medications that people were giving to their children, and they found out that the way that it was dosed was improper, and they were getting, in some cases, 1,000 times the dose that they were supposed to get. And it's part of the reason why all those medications were pulled off the market very quickly. So that could be the case. Okay, continue on.
Now, I want to mention a really good analysis. This was done by Dr. Scott Clack, who's in Ontario, Canada. He's a naturopath. And by the way, I've learned that in Canada and the US, naturopaths, NDs, they get a lot more training than they may do in perhaps England. Okay. So that's what I'm told here. So don't throw me under the bus, English naturopaths. I'm sure you're wonderful, but I guess we get the naturopaths feel they get more training in the US and Canada. Okay. So Dr. Scott Clack says that those levels were extremely high of vitamin D, but even then you have to dose very, very high for a very long time to get those levels. And so that is highly unusual. There's some kind of a connection that, D, the vitamin D, can help link to and cause hypercalcemia, and it fits this case, but the doses that were reported in the case just don't fit. So he wonders if there may have been more calcium supplementation than was reported. They just don't know if all the right details were given. But at any rate, Dr. Clack also backs up the fact that camel milk is safe and effective for children, and it does have a good contribution of calcium. So, the thing to remember is that we always have to look at what we're doing and do it carefully, and there should be some medical supervision. So this job is on 12 things, and I don't really include camel milk in that, but let's go with the headline. And these things were quite, unanalyzed from a body of literature and patients. So some of the things, as we know, we do in the autism community are not established yet. That doesn't mean that they don't help our children, but we do need to find out what's happened with them. And another doctor, a friend of mine, said that these enzymes could be quite strong. And another doctor friend of mine said that really there needs to be much more investigation in some of the underlying causes of hypercalcemia in the child. Again, the reporting doctor did do some of that, but we have to remember that these doctors.
And we've lost Christina. So that's all right. We're going to come back to me here unless we completely froze our whole computer. Are we able to come back to me, Samantha? I can't hear what you're saying. So Okay, but can we come back to me in the meantime? We're going to try and get Christina back on the line. But I think the most important thing, and what Christina was driving home here, is that you need to be clear about everything that you're doing. And in a second, we're going to have her talk with us about her advice if you're doing biomedical treatment. But whenever we're doing anything, we were saying yesterday that if you do too much water, it can be to somebody's detriment, right? Everything that we put into our body, we need to do in moderation, quite honestly. You can eat too much kale. Right? It has an effect on you. So camel milk is a food. It's a food that's been used for hundreds and thousands of years safely, taken in the right amounts. We are back. So I just was driving home the point, Christina, that camel milk is safe. People have been using it for hundreds of years, thousands of years, and like anything else, you need to use all food products in moderation, or they can throw things off. I was saying you can eat too much kale and have a problem, but in this instance, there's nothing to point to that the child had too much camel milk, or that the camel milk was what was causing him to be sick, lose weight, throw up, or have these elevated levels of calcium.
No, there is not. And I would like to point out, I was speaking at a neuroscience conference on autism about 2 weeks ago, and I presented on camel milk and autism. And the fact is, there have been 2 new medical journal articles, one indicating that camel milk is safe for children, the other that it is safe and effective in a variety of disease areas, which is what we've been saying for a while, but it's nice to actually have that in the medical literature now.
Absolutely. And where can people go to find that article?
Well, I could certainly post it on my Facebook page, which is Christina Adams, Autism Author Advocate, and I can also I can tweet it, which is Twitter at CamelMilkInfo, and then also if you want to do your own searching in PubMed, please feel free to go ahead. Just type in PubMed Camel Milk Autism Safe.
There you go. Okay, we were going to take a short break, but I think let's stay with you. But I want to pivot now to, since we've got you here, and we're getting ready at Autism Live to debut a new segment with you in the coming months, where you're going to be talking on a wide variety of topics for us, and including talking about biomedical and giving your advice as a mother who has been there and done that, but also as an expert who's been traveling the world meeting with different autism parents and with different autism experts. The segment is going to be called Autism and Beyond with Christina Adams, and we're really proud that we have the opportunity to do this with you. But since we've got you here, let's give people just a soupçon of what we're going to be covering. Talk to us. For parents who are thinking about doing biomedical or just starting out and they saw this article, they might be a little bit concerned. Give us your best advice, Christina, about doing biomedical interventions.
Well, I've always said, and I've always approached it this way myself, that you need to go slow, you need to have some good observation systems in place, and there needs to be some medical supervision. I have carried out things that way myself and my son. He's never suffered anything that was irreversible or anything like that. Sure, like everything else, we had a couple things that, seemed to kind of not be good for him over a few days, but then you're able to stop those, whatever they are. And one of them has been a pharmaceutical medication. So, all of these things can cause their issues. So generally though, this has been a very, very safe use in autistic kids of complementary and alternative medicine. It's amazing, generally, considering the population and the lack of medical supervision, how safe it's been. So what I like to say is start slow, start generally one intervention at a time. I want you to think like a scientist. That's what they do. They take a setting, they change one thing, and they observe and they get data to see what happens. So that's why I like to see, if the child is in a program, find out what the teachers are saying, the aides are saying, maybe the babysitter is saying, and don't tell them what you're trying. So it's better that way that they're not prejudiced if they're going to give you an idea of what they think. So I say start with the cheapest and cheapest and safest. I actually published an article about this a couple years ago. Here it is. It's called Biomed Battles. I really know, of course, how tough these things can be between parents. You know, it's not easy to agree on these things when there's no real protocol out there in the mainstream, even though the doctors, of course, that treat autism have one. So start slow and pick one thing first. So I like to say get a business calendar. You know, a dad or a mom who's financially minded or business minded, they know that we divide the year into 4 quarters. So for each quarter, 3 months, that's a pretty decent length of time to try an intervention. So I say sit down, make a calendar, and so the first intervention should be the cheapest and the safest. So I say make your top 10 list. And then diet would come before meds because that's cheaper and it's safer. Then we say perhaps a supplement would come before. You might try something like, you know, chelation, which I never did, but some people do, or hyperbaric, which I never did, some people do, or now, of course, people are looking at stem cells. So that's a very, very, you know, medicalized step. So do your slow and low things first. Give it 3 months for each one. Stop it if it seems to be causing problems. Both parents have to uphold this and get a doctor to be supervising you and doing tests. Like in the case we just talked about, I would not give vitamins unless I knew there was a blood test that had showed there's a deficiency in my child. So that's the way to do it. Now, these autism doctors can cost a lot. So you might try to apply to them to see what kind of scholarships you can get. You might also try to recruit doctors that you know that have been treating your family and see if they'd be willing to at least do a lot of the tests and some interpretation that would be covered by insurance.
Love all of that advice, Christina. You make it all really sensible. And this is one of the reasons why I'm so thrilled that we're going to be doing this segment with you. Autism and Beyond with Christina Adams. You are a delight and a treat, and I really want to encourage people, read the book, A Real Boy. It will open your eyes to a lot of things, and you'll love it, because then when you get to see Christina's segments, it'll be even that much more special for you. So
thank you, Shannon. It's a pleasure to be on Autism Live. I want to know that, you know, all of us are getting together, doing what we can to help each other. And I do know that, and I see that Autism Live is doing that. I do it a lot myself, and I'm glad just to be able to get out there and try to reach and help some more people.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time today to educate us about this so that people will understand. Sometimes we see these headlines and they're incendiary, and they put out a message that is not clear or accurate. So thank you for taking the time to clarify for us.
That's right.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Shannon. And
take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Truly remarkable mom, and I hope that you will check out A Real Boy. You can get it on Amazon and other major booksellers. We're going to take a break. We got a couple of minutes. I think we're going to try to squeeze in a mindfulness moment, unless, I don't know, time-wise. We'll see if Matt Asner and Scott Badish are in the building yet, but I told them 11, they're here. So I think we're probably just going to go right to them. We might have to just be mindful during the commercial. Oh, stick with us, though. We're going to be back with some great, great guests. Scott Badish, president of the Autism Society of America, and Matt Asner, who has a regular show here with us on the Spectrum with Matt Asner. And he's going to tell you about his new role at the Autism Society of America. Stick with us. We're very excited because we're in the Noah's Ark exhibit, and we're here with Jason Porter. Thank you for taking us on this tour.
Oh, thanks for having us.
So you're going to show me around a little bit and show me some of the secrets of the Noah's Ark exhibit, right?
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Cool, let's go. Yeah. So Jason, tell us, this is an amazing space. Why is it so incredible for children?
One of the values of the Skirball Cultural Center is taking care of the earth and one another, and so this idea of repurposing materials that would otherwise be tossed off was a big component to how we design the galleries. It's based on, you know, certainly the story that everyone knows is the one from the Hebrew Bible, the story of Noah. But in our research, we looked at over 200 flood stories from around the world, and, you know, many different cultures have flood stories that have similarities, and the similarities that we identified were these 3 chapters: the storm, some crazy challenge that comes to your life; an ark, a kind of means of survival, a way for a community to come together to survive; and finally the rainbow, which is this kind of symbol of hope, the second chance to make the world anew.
Love it. All right, let's take a look through, and we're going to talk about some of the learning opportunities that are available here.
We really wanted people to kind of discover what they were supposed to do. For example, this elephant has a gong in the center, and there's a little wheel here that you can turn and see what happens. But there's also some hidden things, like there's a little peephole in this polar bear, so it's kind of a moment where you could talk with your kids about what does it mean that that polar bear in there only has a small piece of ice to live on it, and you could talk about kind of the environmental issues that might be associated with it.
All right, should we go downstairs?
Yeah, let's check out the storm.
So Jason, what do you call this room?
This is called the Storm Gallery. In one side of the gallery, we have a storm wall, which is all sorts of sounds and sight effects to make the storm come to life. We have this, what we call the load up. It's fairly intuitive. You know, you put animals onto the conveyor belt and you turn the wheel and they get loaded up onto the ark. Except you can't do both at the same time by yourself. It's kind of layered in the doing, the learning that we're really interested in, which is about this notion of working together in order to accomplish something. So, you know, when you first get on the ark, obviously you enter 2 by 2 as the story goes. And so the animals in this first section of the ark, you know, they're not quite sure where they should be. They're a little bit nervous about who to hang out with. The gallery is really organized so that the animals are still in pairs. So we talk a lot about what are the elements of home that you need to survive. And it's really a nice kind of intro into the whole experience of being in a community, learning to be together with people who may or may not be the same as us. This gallery of Noah's Ark is unique, I think, in terms of the way that it was designed, that it offers a huge variety of experiences in a way that really accommodates people of all stripes and spots. So there are more quiet zones, like we just left in the move-in day, where you can come into this room where you have a lot of large motor things that are happening, including climbing, and we kind of have nicknamed this the arcade. It's kind of the chapter in the story where they're making new families and they're mixing with other animals that they've befriended. Oh, we have to talk about poop.
We can't do a show without talking about poop.
So, you know, the other fact of life on an ark is that everybody poops. So the challenge is to, you know, clean up.
Okay, so we're in the last room, very cool room. What do we call this room?
We call this the Rainbow Gallery. You know, people really get that this is a place of hope. Sometimes there's an art-making project, that it ends in some sort of inspiration, that people feel like they're inspired to take action in the world and make it a better place.
Thank you so much for showing us everything and telling us about all the wonderful things at the Skirball Center. Parent to parent, sometimes our kids will engage in certain behaviors that really seem random to us. We have no idea why they're doing it. It's really important to remember that all behaviors happen for a reason. And in fact, challenging behaviors happen for 4 reasons more often than any other reasons. The 4 reasons are attention. A lot of times our kids do things to get attention, and remember, negative attention counts. Another reason why our kids do things is to escape someone or something. A third thing is to gain access to someone or something. And the 4th reason is because it just feels good. So the next time your child is engaging in a behavior that seems random or strange or totally from outer space, stop and ask yourself which one of these 4 things might be causing it. Is it attention? Might it be to escape something? Is it to gain access to someone or something? Or is it that it just feels good? Knowing why the behavior happens helps us to deal with it. What is this ABA treatment I keep hearing everyone talk about? Currently, in the United States, 1 in 88 children is affected by autism. 1 in 88 means something different when your child is the one. Recovery is possible. Hi, I'm Shannon Penrod, host of Autism Live, an online show about autism broadcast by CARD, the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I'm also the mother of a child with autism. my beautiful son, Jem. You know our old joke? Guess what?
Chicken butt.
Chicken butt. So we're going to take the chickens. But things weren't always so easy. I remember when Jem was first diagnosed with autism. I used to lay awake at night in bed and pray for someone or something that could help us to get our child back. My prayers were answered by Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet and the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. CARD treats autism and other related disorders using the principles of ABA, Applied Behavior Analysis, which is the only scientifically proven effective treatment for autism. It is also recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the U.S. Surgeon General. About a year after we started treatment with CARD, we were able to see tremendous improvement, and we got our child back.
What grade are you in?
Second.
You are a smart cookie, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Do you like school?
Yeah.
Do you have any good friends?
Yeah, Oscar.
Oscar is your best friend?
Yeah.
And my child is just one of thousands to benefit from CARD ABA therapy. Across the nation and around the world, children are making amazing progress and being given the keys to unlock their full potential.
Recovery from autism is absolutely a possibility. We've been recovering children for over 20 years. It's just a matter of identifying the child's medical needs, understanding the child's sensory issues, and then teaching the child all of the skills they need in order to function normally.
We know there's hope for autism. Autism is treatable and recovery from autism is possible. Welcome back to Autism Live. Look who I found. I'm so excited because look, this is wonderful on a Thursday, and it was sort of unexpected, but it worked out. And so I have Matt Asner with me, and I have Scott Badish, and Scott is the president of Autism Society of America, and Matt has a new role with Autism Society of America. What is your new title?
I'm the Vice President of Development for Autism Society.
Which is very exciting. I got to say, you got good taste, Scott.
You got great taste and a great guy, and hiring Matt. We couldn't be happier.
Well, I'm thrilled for everybody. I'm thrilled for the autism community.
I'm about 3 weeks in now.
3 weeks.
About 3 weeks in, and I got to say, Scott's amazing. I love working with Scott, and I love
just waiting for his first paycheck. He knows who signed it.
I love everyone that I'm working with. It's really just a great organization, and
it is a great organization.
It's exciting to be there.
For people who don't know, because I don't know what hedge they might have been under that they don't know about Autism Society of America, you are the oldest organization, more than 50 years.
51 years. Last year was our 50th anniversary. 51 years. The first on the block, really.
Yes.
Started because at the time in 1965, parents, upon learning that their son or daughter had autism, and mostly it was a son at that time because girls weren't even being diagnosed, the opportunities and options were zero other than an institutional setting, and the parents said no. And our philosophy from that day till today has been consistently about options and efforts to help people be integrated into the community and and have every opportunity in life we can get them.
Absolutely. And for the first time this year, I got to go to the big conference that you had in
New Orleans.
In New Orleans, as my son and I brought my son.
Your son was there.
And we had a great time. And I always like to, when we come back from an event, talk about, because each organization and each event has its own flavor, right? And one of the things that I was most touched by at that event was I have never, ever in my life been any place where I have met more adults who were on the autism spectrum and a part of what was happening. And that to me was, I mean, there were a lot of really remarkable things. And it wasn't just adults. One of the most amazing things that Kara Kaczynski's son, who's 16 years old, spoke at the event. And it was, it was kind of, and we had people there who came into the room where I was like holding court in the
exhibit hall.
In the exhibit hall, right? And we had people coming in with their very little kids for that as well. So we got to see the whole lifespan in a way that I hadn't seen before, up close and personal, and it was really inspirational.
It's just something you can't describe. I mean,
it is.
And we're just real proud. It's very inclusive. Inclusive as a matter of fact, earlier this week we had a planning meeting for our Milwaukee conference this July, which our national conference in Milwaukee. And it's wonderful because it's fully integrated as far as people with autism, family members, professionals, people who have nothing to do with autism, trying to make this thing the best 4 days of learning, and the evaluations come back with what you say. People feel welcome.
Yes.
They feel for 4 days there's a sense of community that they don't see on the outside world. And it's great. I love it. It's something we all look forward to.
I can't wait to go next year.
Yeah,
We're actually I'll give you
an exclusive? An early breaking news.
The early breaking news is my board chairman, who's a wonderful guy, wants the one after Milwaukee in the LA area. So,
that would be really
so
nice.
I'm going on public TV saying that, and I better be real careful.
All right.
But I think we'll try to do that. We haven't been out here for a while.
You pick great places to go. New Orleans was fun, and they accepted us well, and it was great. It was hotter than Hey Nani Nani, and hot in a way that was wet and sticky I've never experienced before. But
You've
my
been there
kid,
before, right?
I'd never been before,
really?
But my kid has not stopped talking about it.
It's
Scott.
a great.
Well,
in Milwaukee, Milwaukee's a great city. It's got a real sense of community.
Yes.
It's got wonderful ethnic communities, a great downtown area. It's right on the Lake Michigan. It's an hour and 20-minute train ride or car ride to Chicago.
And it's in the summer, so you don't have to deal with the snow.
And Milwaukee in the summer is not as hot as Northern.
Right.
It's funny, I joke, because we were going to have last year's conference either in New Orleans or Austin, and I think Austin was 2 degrees warmer than New Orleans.
Are you kidding?
Wow.
But the humidity,
The humidity was tough.
But so this year, Matt will be there.
Matt will be there.
And so
I
let's talk a little bit about what's happening, because I know it's 3 weeks. It's kind of new, but what's this going to look like?
I'll tell you. We. From my viewpoint, I mean, look, Scott's going to talk a little bit about the new strategic plan for Autism Society, and I think, I could not have chosen a better time to come into Autism Society, because it's really, I think, a time right now of great change, and I think it's just, I'm really thrilled to come in and be able to support something that I think is so needed in our community.
Yeah.
So what you can look at from my viewpoint is a little more adventure, a little more visibility,
more fun.
More fun. You're
going to bring the fun with you, Matt? This is shocking to me.
A little more creativity.
There we go.
So we're going to get out there a little more. We're going to, get out there and stand up and do some dancing, right? We're going to do some dancing.
We may not do. I mean, but one of the things we've done as a national organization is we've done a lot of great stuff helping a lot of people get their life better. What we haven't done is let people know about what we're doing as much as we want to do.
Yeah.
And as Matt mentioned, and is key reason we're so delighted he's with us, we just, it's our 50th year, we took a look and said, what really is the best thing we could do? And we decided that what is needed and what we weren't doing, and quite frankly, we didn't see anyone in the autism community doing, and that's not to say things are that bad, but we said we got to start helping parents from the moment their son or daughter is diagnosed through a kind of this friend for life, that this is a journey, and each of us who has a child with autism or an adult son or daughter with autism sees that. And we have to start thinking in ways that your ultimate goal is to get in adulthood your child, if you're a parent, to be the best they could be. And it should be no different for someone with autism. And what we concluded was that our job, we have to start thinking differently. You know, I did it, we all did it. We go to our kids' IEP class, we say, how do we get you through second grade?
Right.
And then we say, how do we get you through third? But we never say, is what we're teaching in second grade going to lead that kid to a job? Is it going to lead that daughter to be more independent? So how do we start looking at short-term goals to long-term goals? And and also, how do we get parents to measure effectiveness? Not so much did you score all A's. That's great. But if you got all A's and you still can't tie your shoes, or you can't negotiate how to get from point A to point B on your own, we're not succeeding. So we looked at that, and we really got our affiliates all behind us and its lifespan. And when we said, okay, then what do we need? Well, we need someone who has a very good reputation in the community, in the nation, and we need someone who gets it and understands, and then we need to raise lots more money. And we could tell donors now things that, you know, you give us X dollars, this is the outcome you're going to get. Not so much how many people you're going to serve. We're going to show how people are going to become more independent. So we're just, I couldn't be happier. I mean, I've been working in this business a long time, and this is the best. So.
Well, you know, we like Matt more than a little. And
everyone, I got to find someone who doesn't like him.
Know,
I mean, this is
they're out there, somewhere out there.
And Nancy and I like to say that, you know, you guys are autism royalty, your family.
Thank you.
When you want to look and talk to somebody who knows what we're dealing with here, I mean, the fact that your dad, you know, has been working in this field for a long time, because you have a brother, a half brother who's on the spectrum, and you have
three in the house.
Three in your house. That you and your wife together are the Brady Bunch of autism. 6 total kids in a blended family with half of them on the spectrum.
Right.
I mean, your credentials that you show up with are untouchable, because who's going to tell you that you don't know about autism? I would stand in line to go, I'm sorry, you don't get to say, right?
Well, and what I love about Autism Society, I would take hours to talk about, but what I think is great, the people we have working and volunteering for us, just believe in it. I was telling Matt put on a video on his Facebook of an interaction with him and his son that was phenomenal.
Saw that, right?
You know, I mean, if I shouldn't, it was just about him talking with his son in this wonderful way of equality and that any father would love to talk to their son about. And it showed me and it showed other people that, yeah, someone has autism. Yes, we all have something with us. But this is not going to stop us from helping that. And, you know, we needed someone on our staff. All our staff members are like that. So when Matt came on, it was like,
thank you.
And in addition,
although having 4 kids, that's a lot of kids. I have 4 kids too. It's
Six.
I'm sorry.
6.
That's a lot.
Three on the spectrum.
You know, it's like you have to do shifts for dinner. That's tough.
But I'll tell you, you know Nava. I mean, you know Nava.
Nava's pretty impressive.
She's 75% of the load there.
Yeah.
So she's an incredible
well, that was
person.
the other thing that we saw. We had dinner together, and it was just like, God, this is this is great. So we was. But it's gonna, everything he's gonna do and we're all doing helps your listeners and viewers, because at the end of the day, you know, we're gonna change this approach that we got to get away from all these things that we're not succeeding, because kids are succeeding, but we got to help parents and then individuals really advocate to make sure they do the best job, and that's what he reeks of. That's what he talks about. That's what we're so delighted.
Absolutely.
And I will say something very important here, and that is that you know, in the coming year, so in the calendar 2017 year, you're going to see a lot of exciting things coming out of Autism Society.
Right.
A lot of exciting things.
And one of the things that I know from fundraising, you know, and I'm going to show my age, but fundraising used to be, give me some money and I'll just, don't tell me what to do with it. I'm going to decide. I know better than you. But part of what we saw, and this is what Matt's great at, is when you have a fundraising event, it's also an educational event. You know, so if we put on an event, you know, it just, if people are coming and aren't giving us money, it's still successful if they're learning something, if we're hooking them up with a therapist or a CARD program. That's what we want to use the money for. So if we're doing it anyway and not having to spend the money, that's even better. So I think Matt's approach to how do you get 25 objectives done in a fundraising effort is
Yeah,
what's going to be
he's
very
quite
successful.
good at that.
Yeah.
He's quite good at that. And he brings the sparkle with him too.
Yeah, he's.
You do. I mean, you know, you have a background that is such in the entertainment industry that you certainly, and you have a great affinity for music, and so you tend to bring some really kick butt music with you, and a sensibility of that, and a little bit of star power.
Well, I mean,
not a lot of star power.
I was a producer and director for 25 years, and I've been in an entertainment family my entire life, and you know, when I go into a project, I think to myself, what's going to make it fun for me? What's going to make it fun if I were in the audience? And that's important when you're doing something to kind of separate yourself from things and say what would make this exciting for the people who are in the audience, and not just for me, for the people who are in the audience.
Yes.
What's going to make it soar? What's going to make it sail?
Yeah.
And and like Scott said, it's not all about raising funds. It's about raising awareness. It's about bringing in people and keeping them.
Yes.
Well, you know, it's wonderful, and I've not met Matt's dad other than to be a nonstop watching Mary Tyler Moore and Grant.
We got to fix that.
Yeah, but no, but what's so nice is that when you see people like Matt's dad and people of that caliber giving back.
Yeah.
You know, and giving back without saying I need my name on this and anything, it's just they care.
Yeah.
And when you talk about Matt, everyone name he's.
By the way, I have to fight with him for that sometimes.
I know.
I have to fight with him to put his name.
Yeah, that's
on.
what we're saying. And it's so nice to see every person Matt mentions is like not someone, you know, you would think would give back, but then you see they're quietly giving back, and there's this wonderful array, and I think a lot of people with autism, they like it when they see someone at a level of respect and value and a leader in the nation saying we're there with you. That helps you go through the day.
It's
so this is
absolutely
perfect.
important. All right, so where can people go to be keeping an eye on the changes that are coming?
Well, our website, which has just been redone, www.autism-society.org.
Okay.
Our Facebook page, which I'm too old to decide what it is, but it's Autism Society of America Facebook page.
Okay.
Our Twitter account. But we will be consistently talking about things we're doing, and as importantly about what our affiliates do. One thing Matt's also working with is our 100 affiliates.
And we should tell people that you want to get involved with your local affiliate.
They're phenomenal.
Look up to see what that is in your area and get involved.
And I want to proudly say this. We just did our annual review of all our affiliates. We have these very high standards to say you can't put your name on an agency and call yourself Autism Society. And these were standards way beyond it. You know, you have to have a board, which is important. But what are you doing to help people? And I was like 98% of the standards that are needed to be met collectively were all being met. And the ones that weren't being met were so minor. But, you know, we could assure someone that when they go there, they're going to be helped, they're going to be respected, they're going to be valued, and they're going to be given options. They're not going to be said, you know, and they're going to be included. They're part of this family for life, and that's what we want to be.
Fabulous. So check it out, you guys. Autism Society of America. They've been on the job for more than 50 years. And they're
not us. We haven't been on the job.
No, Autism Society has been on the job for more than 50 years. And we're totally out of time, but we thank you guys for coming in.
Thank you for all you're doing. You guys at Card Center are phenomenal. We love you.
I like to be here and get to see what's happening firsthand and share it with our folks at home. So we're out of time, but we will be back here next Wednesday. I've got a special guest for you during Ask Dr. Doreen next Wednesday. Evelyn Kung is going to be here answering your questions, and that's going to be an amazing thing, something we've never done before. And then we've got great guests for you all next week. I'm out of time.
Just like today.
Yeah, today has been amazing.
Just
like these guys and more. I'll fill you in on who is here. So in any case, well, thank you guys so much for being here. We'll see you guys next Wednesday. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me and one for you too. Bye-bye for now.